Welcome to the Rev Up Rebellion podcast. Today we have got an incredible guest, Dr. Jo Brown. Dr. Jo is a performance coach and also the author of See Your Elephant. In this conversation, we are going to fly into the 4 pillars of human performance, the barriers that we need to overcome to be able to really tap into that true potential and seeing your elephant, which is ultimately your blind spot. Now, as context, Dr. Jo is unbelievably well placed to have this conversation with us. She has worked across 19 different sports at an elite level, such as Olympic athletes and NBA stars, and she translates all of those learnings in the world of sport into the world of leadership and business. Dr. Jo Brown, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. So stoked to be here with you.
I have been very, very excited about this and geeking out on all of your work in preparation for you coming. So got a huge hit list of questions to get stuck into. But before we do, I wanted to do a power 3 with you, just to sort of get to know you and kickstart us into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
My first one is, if you had to sum up your work as a high performance consultant, but you only had 60 seconds, how would you describe your work?
Okay, so what I do is I go into a team, or whether it's corporate or in a sporting environment or for an athlete, and I find their performance gap. The process for that is asking the question. So why am I not performing at my best? The next is to do an analysis, figure out what's going on, what's working, what's not, accept what's working and what's not, take the action, but then to be able to articulate it back to all the people in your world. And I think that's part of performance, that people don't really finish the process, so they don't share it with everyone. And I'm really big on people being able to share what they've learned and how they've transformed.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, we're definitely circling back to that one. The second of our power 3, if there's a business leader who's just tuned in, they're listening and thinking, yeah, maybe Dr. Jo's more for sort of athletes and the Olympians and sport and so on. And they're kind of thinking, oh, do I carry on listening? What do you hope that a business leader would get from this conversation?
I think it's really a different perception, and really having that opportunity to acknowledge and know what's in the way is the way, and some different frameworks that I have around managing and analyzing performance. And that's for yourself as an individual and for your team.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I learn more from watching or reading what athletes do than sometimes I do learning from business leaders. I think it just gives a completely different lens. They're still human, even though sometimes they don't seem human. And it's kind of interesting to watch some of their disciplines, their behaviors, their habits. And, I love reading about different sports professionals who have done incredible things.
And I think the thing that's different from athletes to corporate is your competition is in your face a lot more. So you can actually see what your competition is doing, and you can actually choose to emulate them or choose to do things differently. So I think that's quite different to the corporate space. But, encouraging people in that space to actually, dive deep into what your competitors are doing and what you can learn from them.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, we're coming back to that one too. Good job I booked you out for the whole entire day, right? Final of our power 3, if there was one bit up front around high performance that you want to bust, what would it be?
High performers have good thoughts all the time. That's BS, right? Like, no one has good thoughts all the time. High performers are just better at reframing it and resetting.
Nice. I love that. Oh, so exciting. All right, well, let's dive in. I want to start with actually defining high performance a little bit, because I feel as if high performance has almost become a bit of a buzzword. And sometimes I look at it and I'm like, oh, I feel like that's being misused. And I think it gets thrown around a lot and sometimes not always in the right context, in my opinion. So what does high performance mean to you if we were to set that baseline for the conversation?
Okay, for me personally, high performance is constantly showing up as the best version of yourself, constantly checking in and trying to level up. So it might mean that you don't have wins every single day, but you're constantly trying to achieve it. You're constantly gauging where you are you improving? And high performance is essentially excellence on repeat, right? And we all know excellence is a habit, not an act. So literally, repeat excellence is high performance. High performance being a way of life, so you need to continually choose it every day. Even in the athlete world, high performance isn't showing up to training twice a week as a football player and playing on the weekends and being high performance on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Like high performance is everything you do in your life. It's your mindset, it's how you show up to every interaction, and it's purposeful, it's intentful.
I love that. And where you said it's a way of life, I really like that. And that resonates a lot with me. Is that a level of as well, almost as an individual, making that commitment to yourself and actually choosing that I'm going to be showing up as the best version of me, excellence on repeat every day, building the right habits, and that's going to be my way of life. It's that is that first step, the commitment to do so.
100% commitment and consistency. We all have capacity, right? But so many people never reach their true potential because they don't actually commit and they're not consistent. Coming into the new year, all these people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make all these New Year's resolutions and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what? Don't commit to what you can't stand for consistently.
Mm. I once read someone, I can't even remember who it was, but someone talked about commit to what you can also do on your worst day. So, like on your busiest day, you're knackered, you haven't had a lot of sleep. What can you still commit to doing as like even like your minimum, and also like relentlessly raise the standard on what your minimum is. And I thought those two concepts were quite interesting. Do you subscribe to the same school of thought, or is yours a little bit different?
No, 100% subscribe to the same school of sport of thought. I'm so used to talking about sport. And I think the other thing is, we all talk about, greatness happens outside the comfort zone, excellence happens outside the comfort zone. And to a certain extent, that's BS as well, because for some people that don't have a growth mindset, they have more of a fixed mindset, they can still achieve excellence, but it's within that comfort zone, right? So they're really good at performing in a certain range, in a certain, framed area, like a kind of walled city, they could be amazing. But as soon as they break free of those walls, they're pretty vulnerable. And so I think it's really important that people don't, at this time of year, go from, achieving something relatively small and expect to be able to, climb Mount Everest. That is a process. It is all a process. So, what can you actually bite off and chew, like you say, daily, bite-sized chunks? Okay, you're not going to choke on it. So it's like little bits each and every day.
Yeah, I love that because I think I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but it is really, really, really low. It's going to be like under 5% of people stick to that New Year's resolution, whether it's personal, whether it's business, whatever it might be. Most great business strategies fail because of the execution. So I guess it's that piece, like you said, of how can you actually create that consistency you talked about to be able to actually continue on.
100%, 100%. And that's so much about like having the correct mindset and mind skills to start with, and in order to create the planning and processes around those purpose and perception of what you've already discussed, and then it's been able to execute. And I think, like you said, a lot of people can't actually execute what they've planned out to do because they haven't lined everything up. So it's one thing to have a goal and a thought that you want to achieve, but the next is like planning and processing how you're going to do that and sticking to that process no matter what happens when you go to execute.
That's interesting. Okay, we're definitely going to dive into that. So actually, this brings us quite nicely to your book. You talk about, the overview of the book, you talk about the fact that there's four pillars of performance. Actually, is that a good time now? Let's dive into what are those four pillars because it might tee us up quite nicely to expand on some of the points you've just referred to.
Well, I was kind of going, I realized I was going down that line already when we're talking just then. So, my four pillars of performance, and I know there's plenty of people talk about this, but what I work on is number one is purpose and perception. So, this is all your thinking side of things. This is your why. And it's uber important to know and stay connected to your why at all times. When you're connected to your why, you've got a big enough why, you can achieve great things. Quite often, I think in the business world, there isn't a big enough why, or there's not a big enough why that the individual trying to achieve great things is connected to. So, what's in it for me? So, the why's got to resonate not only with the team or the company as a whole, but with the individual. And are they just going to get the reward of achieving great things, or are they going to get a financial reward? What does that look like, and know what that is? So, purpose and perceptions is the first thing. When I say perceptions, it's that your view of the world. So, what you can achieve when you're looking at things and one space compared to another can be quite different. And so quite often it's about just being able to change someone's view of how they're seeing a certain problem or an obstacle in order to be able to have the capacity to run straight towards it. And in my book, I talk about, being able to run towards challenges, run towards excellence, run towards your greatness and your true potential. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of processes. Second pillar of performance is, as I mentioned before, planning and processes. So that's getting all your ducks in a row. And it's really understanding not only the process, but what resources you need in order to be able to achieve that. So, do you need more people in your team? Do you need to have a look at budgets? Is it there's a certain expert you need to bring in order to achieve that goal? So, be really clear and authentic in terms of what you really need and the process that's going to help you deliver it. The third pillar, sorry, is patterns and practice. So patterns and practice is how you actually execute what you deliver. And this is where a lot of people tend to fall over and slip up. And they will contact me and say, "Hey, Joe, I just don't know what happened." When it came down to it, when I was under the pump, when I was under pressure, that's when I failed. And there's normally some telltales in the first two pillars that have led you to that point that haven't been ticked off, so to speak, that when you go to that delivery, it isn't executed in the appropriate manner. And I always ask people, have you done everything in your power to execute your best performance in this moment today? When you ask someone that, and particularly I quite often take people into visualization, and I do this in my book, but I also do it with groups and corporate, something's going to show up for you. Something's going to flicker in front when I ask you that question. And normally when I do it, I've delivered a full visualization. That little flicker, that little realization, that's giving you a hint of your elephant, as I call it, or your blind spot. So the thing that's kind of standing between you and your true potential, when you're not sure what it is, you just know there's a block there. And then the fourth pillar is your people and your power. None of us can achieve our potential, our greatness, what we want for our team, our business, or for ourselves without people around us. Excellence and high performance is not an individual pursuit. No one
Mm,
climbed to Everest by themselves.
yeah. And it's all the people behind the scenes that you don't hear about. It's like, I don't know whether you've watched, oh gosh, it's one of the NIMS who did the mountain climbs and did the 14 peaks. That's the program. And he talks about all the Sherpas and all the team and everyone behind the scenes that made it happen. So, yes, NIMS climbed the 14 peaks and got a world record, but he didn't do it by himself. And same with business.
100%, 100%. And so often the people that actually climb the mountain, the people that we know and see doing it, they are the thought leaders, and they have those first two pillars really down pat. So they're really all over their purpose and perceptions. They've got the goal and they have a plan and a process around it, but they can't execute without the people. Every sporting team, every organization, like the CEO is nothing without all the people underneath.
Mm. So on that, with the four pillars, we're a great time for this conversation. Even if you're a business that's, you're a leader for a business that's the financial year, there's still that sort of people coming back from Christmas, fresh mindset, fresh start, re-energized, recharged. Do you recommend to leaders almost leaning into this time to go, okay, cool, let's reset some of that, the purpose, the why, the what's in it for me, and the other, points that you've just mentioned around your four pillars, like use this opportunity to your advantage of the time of year and where people's mindset might be at?
100%. I think it's a really easy way to level up your team with other people wanting to level up. Like most people have some kind of change of attitude, mindset in the new year. Most people will have had some time off. Most people have connected with their families. So quite often their perception and their view of the world is quite different in those first couple of months a year. So it's the perfect time to lean into that as a manager, a leader, and really work with that process with your teams. They're already probably in it. Just help them lever up another section.
Mm. And what about, um, as a leader, I guess there's two parts to this conversation. One is yourself, and how do you have, you mentioned earlier growth mindset, and a lot of this is a mindset game. So I think it's a kind of an interesting two dimensions of one, how are you as the leader showing up? How are you having growth mindset? How are you committing to that way of life, if we're saying high performance is a way of life. But then I think there's also the second dimension to going, how do you take your team on that journey? And potentially, if you've got someone who's got a fixed mindset in your team, and there's that, old, you can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And then how do you
Mhm.
take your team on the journey? So I'm kind of interested to get your take on those two dimensions, almost like managing yourself, but also managing others for leaders who are listening.
And great question. I'd super love this. And I feel like we could take this whole conversation in so many different directions right now. But like what I question to you and get the listeners to think about is, does your team need the best version of you or any other version? They always need the best version of you. So no matter what, working on yourself and showing up as the best version of you, the authentic you, is going to resonate with everyone in your team. And I know for me in my world, I've been working high performance for 25 years, and the only times I've been stuck or stumbled is when I showed up not as the authentic version of myself. I was trying to be someone for someone else because I thought that's what they needed. That was, where I thought I'd fill a gap. You're there for a reason to show up and be that best version of yourself. And the two ways you're going to be able to deliver that, and we talked about this before, is clarity and consistency. So if you're really clear on who you are as a leader and who you are as a person and the best version of yourself, your team is going to resonate with that. They're going to see how clear you are. They're going to respond to that positive energy, that clarity. And by you just being that, they're going to be directed in a certain way to do things for themselves. The other side of that is that consistency. So one is to be clear and have clarity on how you're showing up, what you're showing up as, and what you're showing up for, and then be consistent in delivering that message. And that consistency is in your communication, written, verbal, and in your body language. And I think that is really important when you are working with other people. So if you're sending an email using one set of language and one type of energy, and then you're talking to them face to face and it's feeling different to them, they're going to lose that clarity. And so they're not going to buy into your process and where you're trying to guide them. Because essentially, as a leader and a manager, you act like a guide, right? We still want people to be able to be that best version of themselves and them figuring out what that is, but you being the best version of you is going to help them find it for themselves.
I like that because there's a level of, you know, almost being the role model yourself. And I remember I did nothing like what you've done, but I did a diploma in positive psychology. I remember them always, people in the class saying, "Oh, but my partner's doing this or my colleague's doing that." And we were sort of taught to come back to, yeah, but what are you doing? And you can control you. And almost by you becoming a better version of you, there's the ripple effect. And I've definitely noticed that with leaders when I've had leaders sort of say to us, "Oh, but my team aren't doing this and my team aren't doing that." And sometimes, and I've had it, not innocent on this either, where you look in the mirror and go, "Oh, what am I role modeling? Am I doing it? Am I actually subconsciously doing that?" And often there's that awkward moment of looking in the mirror and going, I might set the wrong expectation there, or I might not be actually practicing what I preach a little bit. It's a bit like when I tell my 6-year-old to get off his iPad, and then suddenly I look down and I'm on my iPhone, and you're being a raging hypocrite to your 6-year-old. It's that same thing.
100%. And I think that consistency of who you're showing up as is just going to shine through all of that. And I think when it comes to that, what you said about, you can't make them drink the water, you can lead them to it, but you can't make them drink. And I love that analogy because I actually am such a visual person. So I see the horse, and um, but I think the big thing I want to talk about that is essentially you're trying to persuade them to change their perception or their view in order to make them want to drink, right? So, what do you have in your power and your tool set to be able to do that? But I think it starts with really knowing your people. Who are the people in your team? How do they communicate? How do they want to be communicated to? Do they like to be encouraged? Do they need to see a cost benefit analysis? Drink the water, don't drink the water. This is what it's going to look like. Choose. But they have to know and see that they have a choice.
Yeah, that's interesting. And how do you encourage the growth mindset? Is it lean into enablement on growth mindset? Is it more, like you said, the daily consistency and daily little things that we do? Like, how do we encourage 1% improvement in growth mindset?
So it's literally about stretching the comfort zone. So for someone that's got a fixed mindset, is just stretching it. So if you talk about, that person working in a walled city and they're comfortable in the city, you're just moving the wall out a little bit, just stretching a little bit, and then they can take a couple of steps forward. And it comes down to also, like we're saying, down into bite-sized chunks, but then being able to see the results. So then having proof. So generally the person with that fixed mindset, and in my book I talk to them about them as the avoidant hunter, which is a whole nother story, but they need social proof. They need evidence that that little tiny risk that you're taking is going to give them the reward that they're seeking.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I found sometimes it's almost, getting those early adopters on board, putting them up in lights, so the others are like, oh, okay. So there's that internal social proof, and then the others getting FOMO that they then want to jump on board and, be
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, there's definitely an element because those type of people are also going to be so externally driven, right? So they want the pat on the back. They want the bright shiny thing to say, "Yay, you've achieved it." They want the certificate. They want the you win the dinner or whatever it is. So they need that acceptance. But it's funny because they're seeking that acceptance externally, but what they actually need to do is accept internally. So for people that have that type of fixed mindset, I normally try and encourage them to have a little bit more self-love.
Ah, and look internally, yeah, and start with the intrinsic motivation.
Because they're looking for the external motivation, the external driver, the external reward, but it actually has to start from within. So starting to love themselves just a little bit. And I know it sounds really quirky and corny and things like that, but that is where we have to really start to have long lasting change with those type of people.
And I guess I had the conversation with someone who was previously on a podcast around this as well, of going, to what extent is this is the business's responsibility to provide the right enablement, help encourage growth mindset, have the right leadership, have the right direction. And then at what point does it also become us as individuals, our own personal responsibility to go, well, is it the business responsibility to work on our self love and, like I said, take the horse to water but can't make it drink? At some point, we've also got to take that personal ownership and accountability, to addressing our own performance. So I find that one's quite a where's the line?
100%. And I think this is going to be more and more a conversation as we move forward in society because we're becoming so more and more aware of the limitations and performance of individuals. Have so many more ways to track performance, analyze performance in sport, in business, and then it comes to the point, are you just not the right person for that role? And drink the water or don't drink the water, you choose and choose what's the best fit for you. And just like you've got to be authentic to yourself and all your decisions and everything that you do, the round peg, square hole analogy, just sometimes you're just not the right fit for that role. And someone with a fixed mindset can be amazing in certain roles because they're consistent, they do a great job, they respond to rewards, so you know what you're going to get. So in certain situations, they're the absolute best employee for that role, but in other roles, they might not be the best fit. And so just being honest with that and leaning into that. And not everyone needs to have a growth mindset, right? Like not everyone is gonna lead and change the world. I said to my husband the other day, well, I'm going to change the world, right? And he goes, oh, well, I don't want to change the world. He doesn't have to. He just needs to support me.
That is so powerful. So I guess as an actionable takeaway for any leaders listening, particularly this time of year, is there a level of a reflection point to go, okay, looking at the team and yourself, who's the right fit, right seat on the bus, and who's actually, square peg, round hole, and actually not, like you said, not that they're a bad person or that fixed mindset is, like I said, it could have other advantages, but maybe actually wrong seat on the bus. So maybe using this time of year again as a bit of a reflection, is everyone in the right seat?
100%, 100%. And I think it's a real powerful time to do that. And it doesn't mean they're not valued. They just need to be utilized for their best fit, their best value. And their best version is actually with that fixed mindset a lot of the time.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing that I really want to dive into is I have this
belief in my experience that sometimes it's not lack of knowledge. So we might even know about, we use the examples we've talked about before, growth mindset. We might know about some high performance habits. We might know what we should be doing, to for our contribution to our role. But often we don't do it. A bit like this morning, should have gone from the run, not slept in, don't have the Mars bar last night, all the rest of it. We kind of know what to do, but we don't do it. And so I kind of am of the belief that part of the challenge around actually performance and executing is actually that bridging that gap between I know what to do, but I don't do it. And like I said, building, yes, I need to build up consistency in some of those habits, but it's almost that overcoming that block and making it happen. How do you encourage teams or the athletes that you're working with to overcome that barrier?
Oh, this is quite a loaded question. There's lots of parts to this too. So, and I love it though. So knowing requires belief. So knowing is removing doubt. So when we actually get down to it, if we have belief, the doing requires belief as well. So we need to believe in what I talked about before. So we need to believe, sorry, in the people around us. We need to believe in the process, and we need to believe in our true potential. But if you don't believe in those things, you're not going to be connected to your why. You're not going to follow through on your process. So there's no way you're going to execute when it counts. So you've got to know the cost of not doing.
So is there a level of self-reflection here as well? Going, actually, I don't believe in the vision of this company. I don't believe in the leadership. I don't believe in the new strategy that's being set. And actually, rather than me staying here and being jaded and pulling everyone else down, because we've all kind of heard, the negative impact of one person who's not on the bus and how that sort of spreads to others, is there also that reflection point to go, well, then am I in the right company? Am I in the right role? Because actually I'm not invested and maybe I need to take ownership on, you know, high performance is a way of life, back to your line. And actually maybe I'm not in an organization where I can actually show up in that way.
100%. And like literally where I was going to about to go was this all requires a level of self awareness. In every single one percenter that I've ever met on this planet has great self awareness, and they continually seek to check in with self, with their process, with their people, with their potential. Like, where am I at? Am I running as fast as I should? So it's always checking in and have that awareness of self, but also have the awareness of the impact of your environment. So, are the people around me doing good things for me? Am I, feeling trusted, supported, cared for, or are they actually quite toxic to me? That constant, consistent check in terms of what am I doing? Can I do anything else? What is the competition doing? Could I have done that better? But what is the outcome of that? So if I sleep in today, what is the cost of that tomorrow? But you can only do that and reflect when you're truly self-aware. And the funny thing is 85% of us believe we're self-aware, but 15% of the population are actually self-aware.
Oh, that's fascinating. So then how do we encourage that self-awareness in ourselves and others? What activity or whatever?
Read my book.
Obviously, read your book. That's a given. Read your book and have you as a keynote at conference and kickoff.
So literally self-awareness and daily check-ins need to be part of that routine that I talked about. Part of that consistency is checking in. I have lots of different things I do with my athletes and with teams when I work with them. But one thing is I have three words that are my values, my strongest values. And I wake up every morning, I meditate, I go to the gym or a run, have my coffee, and I do a check-in with those words. And if I'm living those words, those values, and mine are connection, excellence, and belief. So if I wake up every morning and I believing in what I'm doing and my process and my purpose, I'm doing everything I can to achieve excellence and I'm connected to great people, I'm living the best version of myself. But if I check in and I wake up in the morning and I'm like, ugh, I'm not feeling that, I know I've got to change something. And sometimes it's something I need to change for myself. Sometimes it is a change in the way I'm interacting with other people. So just in the last few weeks, in the preparation of having my book released, and there's certain people that I had to remove from my environment because they weren't a good influence on the process. And I've up leveled consistently in the last few years. I've done some pretty amazing things. I've been working really hard to achieve that. But as I go along this journey, there's certain people that are going to be left behind. And I talk about this in my book as well. But not everyone is going to make it to the top of the mountain. And our natural capacity and talent will take us to base camp of Everest. Everyone pretty much, unless you've got some illnesses and things, would make it to base camp of Everest with a little bit of training. But to make it to the summit requires people, it requires consistency. But the people you take on that journey to the summit is really important because as you climb, the oxygen gets thinner. So there's less oxygen to go around. You don't want someone that's going to steal more of the oxygen. And there's less space at the top when you get there as well. And the more time you spend in high performance, you realize how important it is to find your climbing partner.
I love that. And I think one thing I've taken away from what you've just been talking about the past few minutes on multiple different angles is creating space to reflect. You each morning going, hey, I'm going to connect in with my values and my 3 words. You are creating space to reflect. For me, I found even with our team meeting, having questions to reflect on, what else what could I have done better this week or whatever it might be. Or for me, after I do a keynote, I'll sit and reflect on what works really well and what didn't. Like, and you've talked about self-awareness, and then even reflecting on, have I got the right people that I'm going to be going to the summit with, and so on. And so almost everything you've just talked about there, yes, there's the self-awareness, but also in the world we're in where everyone's busy. You ask anyone how they are, we're busy. We're all busy. We're all maxed. There's also creating space amongst that for the self-reflection to get the self-awareness.
100%. And I talk about the power of pause so much in my book. And literally every chapter, there's a couple of like pause and reflect, because literally we don't do it. So, unless in my book, big bold letters, pause and reflect, most people will just try and get to the end of the chapter, get the learning, let's go, whereas that power is in you pausing and reflecting, absorbing what I've said, and then processing it in your own way to make your own choices moving forward.
So I want to actually touch on your book because we've alluded to it a couple of times. So your new book, congratulations. See your
Thank
elephant. Oh
you.
my god, I can't say the word. Let's try again. Your new book, See Your Elephant. Um,
Yes.
Congratulations on that. Massive, 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 massive achievement. The book, as I understand it, and haven't managed to get my hands on it yet, so I'm super excited, is around, what's holding you back from your true potential. Can you, we touched on it a little bit, but talk to us a little bit more about that process of sort of really identifying what is it for me that's holding me back?
Okay. Easy peasy. So basically, I've taken the idiom that we all know, see the elephant in the room. And what I noticed over 25 years of high performance sport was that it wasn't the room that had the elephant. We actually all individually have our elephants, and they're our BS and our blind spot. And you quite often have these times in your career or your business, and it's like, oh, I just feel like something's standing between me and my greatness, me and my true potential. That, my friend, is your elephant. That's your BS, your blind spot. It's that thing that we all choose to push away. I'll deal with that next year. It doesn't matter that I didn't have the conversation with my CEO, or it doesn't matter that we didn't finish that marketing meeting, or it doesn't matter that I didn't do my gym workout, or it doesn't matter that I went to sleep having a fight with my husband. It matters. It's still there. Unless you deal with it and acknowledge it, it's still going to be there. And so on the book, I take people through on this journey to see their elephant and discover what's holding them back from their true potential. So it's a process. And I'm so big on processes, as you've already heard. But the first thing is to choose to see your elephant. And that's quite a powerful choice because then you have to go on the hunt. And I take you on a journey to prepare for the hunt. And you've got to know who you are as an elephant hunter. And some of it is around what we're talking about before. Do you have a fixed mindset? Do you have a growth mindset? How do you respond to challenge? How do you respond to feedback? And that's going to give you an indication of where you sit on a self-awareness scale. So I take you through the process of determining how self-aware you are, and then you choose which kind of hunter you are, and that's going to give you an idea of where you need to hunt and look for your elephant. I describe 14 different elephants. There's thousands. These are just 14 that I've met on the high performance journey in sport. But what's crazy is once you see your elephant, you one have to accept it. So many of us, like I talked about in the visualization before, have had this glimpse of our elephant, right? Like even I saw you had a little flicker in your eyes when I said it before. You're like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah. But when you look back over time, you actually will quite often have the same elephant reoccurring. And there'll be certain triggers and times it shows up. But at some point, you've actually got to stare the elephant in the face. You've got to accept it. And in that acceptance, that's another choice. And then things will start to change for you because then you can see where it's holding you back and then the action you need to take. And then it becomes a choice again. Is it something that you can keep learning from that elephant? So it showing up in high performance moment teaches you to do something. Or is it that you need to slay it and get rid of it straight away because it's holding you back like a limiting belief? And it's possible that elephant might become your friend over time and it's something that you continue to nurture and grow with. But the most awesome thing is once you've seen your elephant and you've dealt with your elephant, you've either made friends with it or you let it go, then all there is learning in your best performance. And then I have you determine where your learning might be relative to the 4 pillars of performance. So it's a big journey, but I think it's a journey that everyone should take. And I think it's really relevant. Like we're all so busy, like you said, that we don't take time to pause and reflect. And some of the simplest things that are standing between us and our greatness are right there in front of us to change.
I love that. That's so powerful. That's giving me goosebumps. Because everything you've talked about, like it all kind of links together. You can't have the high performance, you can't, have that as a way of life if we haven't had the time to reflect, if you haven't, like said, found your elephant, if you haven't stopped amongst the madness to do it. Everything you're saying is all connected. One thing I am curious about is several times you've talked about stopping and visualizing. And I think that I've heard a lot of athletes, I've heard a lot of actors all talk about visualization. I don't My perception, rightly or wrongly, is I don't think many people talk about it in a business context, or maybe it's still considered a bit woo in the business context. I don't know. What's your take on that around visualization in a business context?
If you can't see it in your vision and create it and believe it happening, it's never going to show up. It's like a goal. If you can't share it, it's never going to happen. So I feel like in the business sense, a lot of people are missing out on achieving great things because they're not using that extra tool. The thing about visualization, if we're basically telling the brain that we've already achieved something, right? And when we do it well, the brain doesn't know the difference between achieving it and not achieving it. So you can feel the feelings and you can have the experience of what it is like to experience, getting that contract or having that win. And I think it can be really powerful a lot in some of those middle management roles where they might not really know how to show up as that person that's had to level up. So you have visualization that it enables them to feel what it's like and believe in the idea that that can happen, and then you work backwards from that. So taking the action steps for them to be able to feel and live that experience.
I've heard a few entrepreneurs on podcasts talk about creating like a vision board of the person that I need to become to level up to, go to the next role or the next level of leadership or take my business to the next level, whatever it might be. They've done vision boards to go, okay, this is the habit they would have. This is what, this high performance person, this is what they would do. And then using that vision board and like that daily plan to go, I had to become that person. And I hear a lot of people talk about that. Is it that sort of thing that you're also alluding to?
100%, 100%. Like, I think, a lot of people say, oh, the vision board's like the only thing, right? And it's like, no, like the vision board is a visual side of it, right? So it's one part of it, but the feeling and the seeing for yourself and the experiencing. You can taste success when you actually do a proper visualization. It's all the senses are involved, and that's how we imprint and that in our brain, because your brain thinks it's a memory. And I think that's really important as well. So it's not just so the vision board is one dimensional, whereas the visualization obviously becomes three-dimensional. But then I think it's really important to back that up with the language that you're speaking, the way that you're speaking, like I said, in emails, in verbal communication, your body language. And I think that our body language and the psychology versus physiology approach, right? So, you know, the power of a smile, what that does to our brain chemistry. And I think it's really important to acknowledge all those things in this process of, becoming that best version of yourself. Sometimes we just need to reset the nervous system. I talk about this thing called the happy dog, which is a great reset. We won't do it on camera right now,
No,
but
tell me about the happy dog. I want to know about the
okay,
happy dog.
so the happy dog is one of like my top 5 secrets, psychology secrets, so to speak. Okay, so you know how like when you see a dog and they're really happy to see you or whatever, and they wag their head and their tail at the same time. Now you can
Yeah,
do it sitting in the chair right there. So you just wag your head and your tail at the same time. Like you can't help but feel joy. You can't
yeah.
have a smile. Like you're smiling just looking at me do it, right? And it's just like this instant reset for your nervous system. It's amazing. Like I've had like elite athletes. I remember I had this NBA player and he was just like way stressed out. He was returning from injury, and it was a pretty big moment for him. Like it was kind of like if he doesn't perform on the day coming back, he was going to get cut. And I was like, okay, I'm going to share with you one of my tricks. And I said, go do the happy dog, and he's like, what? And anyway, I did the happy dog, and he did well. But yeah, so I think it's really important to just have some of those tools to reset the nervous system and be able to take yourself out of that, overthinking, stressing out, that pause and reflect. But what your perception is going to be after having that reset of your nervous system is going to be so different in relative to what it was before. So if I've been on a call, for instance, and it was a really negative call, I'll do like the happy dog and just let that go and go into the next one. I think we all need those processes to be able to reset.
I love that. I've read so much around this territory because I just love it and geek out on it. And I've never come across the happy dog or that tag strategy. So I'm going to be using that. I'm going to be happy dogging all day. I love it.
I'm gonna have to do a LinkedIn happy dog post out. You'll have to send me a video of your team doing happy dog.
Team meeting doing a happy dog. I love it. And maybe what we
Yeah.
do is everyone who loves listening to this episode, you go to your happy dog and then you got to post on LinkedIn and tag Dr. Joe and myself, and we'll all just start a bit of a wave of momentum. Oh, we're going to start a happy dog movement. That's what we're going to do.
A happy dog movement, I love it. I love
Uh,
that so much.
so I've got to ask you, I've got to sort of circle back to the beginning of one thing that I probably didn't, we didn't sort of unpack as we went. You talked at the very start around the 5 A's.
Okay, so number 1 is ask. So you've gotta be to really live high performance and be reaching your true potential, you've gotta ask yourself, "Is this my true potential? Am I happy here, or am I ready to level up?" But if you don't ask that question, you're not ready to level up. The next day is analyze. So really take a look at what's working and what's not. And you can go through those 4 pillars of performance, which was what I'd suggest, and like basically break each one of those down. And I do have more of a framework around that, but that would be like another 4 hours in podcast. So whatever comes out in that analysis is okay, accepted. Don't try and change it. Don't try and make excuses. Oh, it was just because, no, it wasn't just because that's how it is right now in the moment. Accepted. And I think this is a big problem as we get feedback, we analyze something, and everyone's just trying to dart around like whose fault is it? Blind fault. It's like take responsibility, take accountability, accept. And there's so much power in that. And then once you accept, you've basically got this clear, like billboard, whatever you want to write on to plan the action. But the action needs to be aligned with that best version of you. So you've got to know what your values are, what lights you up, and what is the best version of you. And the action can be the smallest, tiniest little thing. It might be emailing one person, it might be making one phone call, it might be cleaning your desk so you'll have, clarity of thought. It can be the tiniest thing, but take the smallest action. So the two ones that I think are done really poorly is accept and articulate. So I think a lot of people will ask the question, they'll analyze and they'll take action. Like everyone always says, fear is the action of the antidote of fear and all those kind of things, right? We take action, but then you need to articulate it, meaning share it with your team, with your family, whoever's in your world. I had this win today because I took this action. And then basically that creates a memory that changes your brain chemistry. It's like, oh, okay, I actually now have control of this process. I created a process for myself. And then it's go back and ask again. So the cycle continues. Do I need to level up? Am I living my best potential? Am I the best version of myself? What is it going to take? Analyze, accept, action, articulate.
I love that. That's so powerful. And particularly, like you said, that acceptance part. I think it's really easy to make excuses. Um, I often use the example of, my brother is sort of quite up there in terms of athletics, and he's a triathlon and a running coach and does a lot himself. And when I give him my excuses of why I haven't worked out or why I haven't done what I said I was going to do, he's like, Abbie, do you know that Barack Obama, when he was president, worked out and played basketball every day and every morning before he went to the office? Do you perceive that you have less time than Barack Obama? And of course, I sort of like, yeah, but he's got nannies and he's got, staff and blah, blah, blah. But it's actually a really great thing to then go, hang on, I'm making excuses. I'm making BS excuses. And then actually also having a little bit of acceptance around it rather than just sort of trying to deny it or argue it. And I found even in business the same. I heard Gary Vee once, and I reference this a lot, talk about anything that happens in his business in Veda Media, anything that happens, no matter, whether it's someone right at the bottom, wherever they are, he has this thing of looking at himself going, what did I do that caused that to happen? How could I have done it differently? What process did I not set up? What expectations did I not set? What values did I not have in place? Whatever it might have been, how can I, as the leader, even though I might not have been directly responsible, how do I take accountability? So the accountability piece, but then the acceptance piece, and then take action. And I love that, because I think it's a really powerful shift to get away from the knee jerk of yeah, but, and so on.
And I think the other side of that, which I want to mention, is, am I allowed to swear? Bad
Yes, you
word?
can swear away.
Fuck, sorry. So over the years, I've had so many athletes, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, fuck, sorry. Don't say sorry to me. Don't say sorry to Case. Just be better.
Mm.
Fuck, sorry, be better.
Fuck, sorry, be better. That's totally your billboard.
That's my keynote. Fuck, sorry, be better.
I feel like we've just come up with the world's best keynote. If you would like to book Dr. Jo Brown for Fuck, Sorry, Be Better, like, hit her up. So I've got two final questions for you. Quick fire questions. The first one, you've worked with all different athletes, elite athletes, Olympians, across 18 different sports, 6 different countries. If there's one or two non-negotiables, I feel like we might have touched on some of them already, but if you had to just pin down a couple non-negotiables, what do you think they are for extraordinary performance?
Okay, we've kind of covered most of them already, but self-awareness. Always look for your authentic self. Show up as your authentic self. You will go off the rails, you'll get lost, you'll lose clarity. Show up as your authentic self 100% of the time. You will do greater things and achieve greatness and your potential when you're aligned with your authentic self. If you're trying to be someone else, you will be blocked and you won't achieve those things 100% without any doubt in my mind. That's number one. The second thing is the consistency. So be consistent in everything that you do and check in with yourself. So they kind of come in together. So be consistent and check in. Am I achieving what I need to achieve? Do I change? Do I need to pivot? And I think there's so much power in that check in and go, oh, actually, I need to pivot slightly sideways. And rather going along the track for 6 weeks, a month, a year, 5 years of like, oh, we're going okay. And, I think so many people are achieving mediocre instead of extraordinary because they're not checking in and they're not being willing to pivot. So being consistent in everything you do, but go, is it working? And if not, pivot and be okay to pivot. And the third and final thing is always look for the learning. So I believe we're never throwing anything that we can't handle or we can't learn from. So, and everything that happens in my world, I'm always like, okay, wasn't meant for me, or what is a learning? So sometimes we have this plan for ourselves, and I think this is classic. We're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do all the right things, and that's going to achieve that. And what I've found is sometimes when I'm on a trajectory, and I get a disappointment or whatever, but it's because I'm just like being like emulated and projected to the next thing, the better thing. So there's a bigger plan, a bigger idea of what we need to achieve, right? So always look for the learning is there, and run straight at it.
I love that. I'm feeling super pumped and inspired today. I'm going to be on fire today. Final question. Unfair question, 'cause I know you're a big, big, big reader, but is there a book that you find yourself recommending in a business leader context more than others, or a book that you gift more than others?
Oh, like there's so many, and I read a lot. And some books I read, and I read 2 chapters, and I put it down. I come back again a month later, or 2 months later, or whatever. One I was recommended by a friend recently in writing my book and resonates with me, and it has a similar kind of ethos to me. Was Think Again by Adam Grant, and it's that whole thing that we talked about before is creating time and space to pause and reflect. And essentially in that book, he draws in a whole lot of stories and a whole lot of different thoughts and ideas, and it just encourages you to pause and reflect, think again.
Yeah, I love that. I saw him speak when he was in Sydney, and I've just finished reading Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. I think he's a legend. He's brilliant. So yeah, anything Adam Grant is always a winner.
Yeah, totally agree.
Dr. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. If you would like to connect with Dr. Joe on LinkedIn, go to the show note. Obviously, Dr. Joe's book, See Your Elephant. Again, we'll put the link in the show notes, so head there so you can buy your copy. And obviously, as I mentioned before, Dr. Joe also does keynotes and works in corporate world as well with teams. So feel free to connect with her via LinkedIn, and all the contact details that we're sharing in the show notes. Dr. Joe, you have been incredible. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a fun conversation, and I just am so stoked I get to, help people live their true potential. Like, what a job.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Joe as much as I did. If you're looking to connect with Joe or maybe order her book, See Your Elephant, all of the details that you need are in the show notes. Now, before I leave you, I want to do a quick shout out that our next Rev Up cohort is starting soon. If you want to check out the details, again, the link's in the show notes to show you the full 12-month program. And finally, don't forget to subscribe, because we have got some absolutely incredible guests coming your way that I cannot wait to share with you.